Hello, everybody. We are back from break with more Dungeon of the Mad Mage. When we left our party, they were in the audience chamber in Spiderwatch Keep, fighting, sparring, right, against House Freth, against Erlal, the Great Mother, against Driven, her Archmage brother, against Zaran Adaragon, the Dark Dancer of House Freth, and against their two allies, Vikadara and Balrin. It was extremely touch and go with some pretty climactic moments on both sides of the battle, with Ashes and Ezrah both falling, though both of them did amazing work in the battle, with Matashtai almost going down, with Driven Freth being knocked unconscious, right? And Zaran Adaragon only actually surviving by taking a much more defensive posture in the second half of the battle than he did in the first half. But it is in the last stages of this fight, as Matashtai is barely clinging to consciousness. Mossy and Bones flanking the Great Mother, continuously tearing into her, and her holding this just incredibly serene, calm state, clearly almost inured to the pain being inflicted upon her. The Great Mother whirls her glaive above her, a mother's touch, slams the butt into the floor, and promptly declares that she is satisfied and that she surrenders. And there is an immediate, release of tension within the chambers as all of the drow, not so much the Great Mother, but all of the other drow are standing there waiting on bated breath as the various individuals around this chamber are barely alive, barely conscious on a lot of their parts, right? And Erlal looks at Mossy and Matashtai and Bones, who had been the remaining combatants. I gotta turn the battle music off. We're not in battle anymore. Who were the remaining combatants? And she kind of she has declared her surrender. But you see, she's still at the ready in case you all were to betray her in this moment. She's still prepared to defend herself, and she's kind of looking at each of you, waiting to see what your reaction is. So what do you three specifically do in this moment?
I walk over and I start patching up Driven.
As you walk over and you begin to begin to coalesce healing energy. Assuming you're doing Hand of Healing, or are you pulling out the
I don't
staff
actually have it. I was going to start taking some... Oh, yeah, I can Staff of Healing him. I take out my Staff of Healing.
As you pull out the Staff of Healing, Erlal calls after you, and she says, "That won't be necessary. Leave him, at least for the moment. He deserves his fate." And then she kind of she glances at Mossy and Bones, makes eye contact with both of you, still flanking her. Her blood just coating the various daggers that Bones has been holding.
My bad. I wipe it off real quick, and then I go, high five Mossy.
She shrugs at you, and she looks at the serrated blade of Mother's Touch, which is just coated in Ezrah and Matashtai's blood. And I think she hits you once or twice with it as well, right? So she just shrugs, it's a non-issue to her. But she does look around the chamber, and she says, "This is a bloody mess. You all could learn your limits perhaps a little bit more, although I am impressed by your tenacity. Let's not..."
I understood this was a test of our strength, and that's what we were showing.
There is...
Yeah, we don't ever quit.
There is strength and wisdom in knowing your limits, sir. She looks at Ezra like he should know better, right? Like a learned
yes.
man.
Yes, but the dungeon is unforgiving.
She kind of like inclines her head and she says, "You are not incorrect. Come, let me repair some of this." And she raises her hand to cast a spell.
Counterspell.
I waited. I waited in case he wanted to.
I mean, I have one slot left. No, that's fine.
All right.
No,
all
we heal
right.
naturally from this.
Hold up. I've got the wrong thing
Oh,
up.
she doesn't have the
There
slot
we go.
for it.
That's correct. I need everyone. Matashtai, Ashes, Ezra, and Bones. I need you to fully heal yourself and then tell me how much you healed.
Okay.
75.
112.
40.
107.
Okay, un momento. We got 75, 112, 107,
40.
40.
One of these is not like the others.
I mean, it's not that far off, in fairness. Well, it's not far off the 75, I guess. Okay.
I also chugged 2 graders.
That's very true. Ezra would have gone out a little earlier if it had not been for those 2 graders. And there was a little healing from Matashtai in there as well.
Also, yes.
Okay, each of you is fully healed as you watch Erlal Freth reaches up and touches the crown atop her head, and the entire room is filled with a warm, radiant light as she casts a 9th level spell, Mass Heal.
Wow. That's cool.
And as she does, she looks at each of you in turn, as if to insinuate, like with this knowing look on her face, as if to insinuate that she surrendered, but she still had plenty more in the tank. She could have fully healed herself and kept going.
Yeah, that would have sucked.
That would have been a problem, yeah.
She then uses
little scary.
She then uses the remainder of the healing to heal the majority of the combatants in the chamber, leaving herself for last. You see the various shadows begin to dissolve, and Zeron steps out of none of those shadows, opens the door to the hallway, and steps out from the hallway. Wasn't even in the room in the last moments. Steps into the hallway, kind of like looks around like, what did I miss?
Jeremy, is it clear that she is healing everyone else before herself?
Yes, it is very clear. You can still see her body riddled with wounds. And then she steps over. She doesn't even heal Driven before healing everyone else. She then steps over to her brother, and you see her begin to cast another spell as she begins to cast spells in succession to heal her brother and to heal herself somewhat, right? You do see, though, slowly but surely, her wounds are knitting themselves closed on their own.
She's got a healing factor.
Regeneration.
She casts an actual heal on Driven. And
heal?
Yeah, a heal. And the Archmage kind of like blinks back awake and looks up at Erlal and goes, "Did we get him?" And Erlal looks at him and just like, "That was never the intention, brother." He looks up, blinks, and says, I'll take that as a yes. Go team. And he picks himself up, dusts himself off. The staff of interposing ideals had frozen above him, was no longer defending him. Now that he is fully conscious again, it begins to slowly sway around him, and he puts out his hand, and it shrinks down to basically like the size of a matchstick. He pockets it, brushes himself off, and looks and sees Matashtai standing like right there, and he points and he says, I had you twice.
You did. I kind of hold out a hand to help him out.
He looks at you like he does this, and then he takes your hand and he says, all right, fair enough, we'll call it a tie. He stumbles past you over to the cabinet that Bones and Mossy are standing next to, right? And he basically like shoulders in between the two of you to this crystal decanter, and he pours himself this glass of wine, and he just drains the entire thing in one go and pours himself another and turns around and says, all right, are we're calling that a success, right? He looks to Erelal. And Erelal looks and kind of like turns to regard the chamber, and she says, I am personally relatively impressed, and I hope that our potential compatriots are impressed as well. I feel the answer to the question of what both sides can bring to the table has been answered. And she kind of like looks at each of you in kind of like this, like waiting for a response kind of like manner.
Yeah, I'd say it went pretty well.
She
Your
nods and
strength is impeccable.
she kind of walks over, sits down next to the harp again. And you see everyone in the chamber kind of like retakes the positions that they had been in originally, right? Driven is next to the cabinet, next to the wine. Zaran is over by the little shrine to Alistrai, and the other drow are kind of like flanking the exits. Erelal looks at all of you, kind of like regards. She kind of like moves a lock of hair that had fallen on her face, and as she does, she realizes she smears blood across her forehead. Right, and she looks down and she kind of like sighs. And you see Driven's hand flick in a motion as he prestidigitates the blood away from her face. And there's the kind of like this mutual, like obvious, like brotherly, sisterly respect and love, familial love there, as the two of them kind of like share a moment. All of you can roll me an insight check.
Okay.
Insight.
Insight.
These are carefully guarded individuals, right? Ezrah, Ashes, they seem like pleasant siblings. Matashtai, Bones, the look and the interaction that they share indicates to you that they are relieved, right? That there was concern at the start of this engagement that you all might not be all you were cracked up to be, right? That you might be worthy allies, sure, but the looks that they're giving you indicate more than an intention of worthy allies. More than the desire for just a few more people to add to the battlefield.
Yeah.
They look at you and you realize they have an idea. They have a purpose. And Erelal, in her cool assessment and regard, recognizes both of your awareness.
Yeah, we're aware.
And she looks at Matashtai and she looks at Bones and she says, I want to make myself very clear. Had we continued this battle, you would have died. You may have killed some of us, but you would have perished. However, I believe you may be as close as we can get. In a war, resources matter. Allies matter. But ultimately, if you can't cut the head from the snake, we'll just regrow. It will just find a new army. It will just make new allies to replace the ones that it has lost. House Freth is at a moment of weakness at this point. But we will continue fighting. We will survive. What my brother and I see in you is a chance to turn the tide. A chance to make a difference. A chance to cut the head from the snake, so to speak. This test, I apologize, was more than it may have originally been intended to be. Because if you couldn't come close to beating us, there's no chance you could come close to beating Vlonwell.
Yeah.
Well, as I see it, there was no deception. You wanted to know what we could do, and we were happy to show you.
I'm glad.
Those of your house have proven themselves valuable allies and friends, and
She looks
you
over
have
at Balrin
shown...
as you say that, right? Like a clear connection there as like, thanks for paving the way, buddy.
and you have proven merit in that, even here and now.
Do not take my words at misunderstanding. Were you to march now at full strength against Vlonwell, it is possible that perhaps you would defeat her and her cohort. And perhaps she would leave you dead on the floor. But it is at least a question, which is more than we could say in the past. So now, we just have to figure out how to make that an even fight. Neutralize the armies, neutralize her commanders, take out individuals our own, do what we can to combat the overall strength of her forces, which I will again repeat, outnumber us by far. But if with other allies, with perhaps your additional strength, your additional allies, we can even the playing field somewhat, and we can give you a shot. Kind of like, she leaves the last thing hanging. Because what she's saying, basically out in the open, is that House Freth is interested in you being the tip of their spear. And you suddenly have flashbacks, right? Like this is...
It's the Legion all over again.
Yeah, this is the second or third time, right? Like, you did this with the Legion, but you also did it with the Blacktongue tribe, right? Like, on repeat, these allies that you find in these situations are willing to fight, but they're more willing to back up a potential mercenary force, so to speak, especially ones that they have grown to know and trust, right? The Blacktongue tribe, for example, was a very unique experience because they had known you and trusted you for some time in the form of Risk. And that is a very similar situation that's happening here with Balrin's endorsement as well, right? So now House Freth, after these different situations, basically Erlal and Driven are expressing that they might not trust you 100%, but they are willing to grow into that trust. And they believe, maybe not that you're guaranteed to win in a battle against Vlonwelv, but that there is at least a chance of your success.
Ooh.
At the very least, prior to planning, we must warn our allies. The Legion must know that there is a
threat.
threat
Yeah.
to our alliance. And
Erlal
if
nods.
we need to call arms and call in some of our other allies to aid in this, we will need time.
I could not agree
Roll the
more.
bad eyes.
Absolutely. This is not a scenario or operation that will happen in immediacy. We all will need time.
All right, so
And she looks across at Driven and he nods. And then she looks back at Bikadara and Bikadara nods, right? And then Erlal looks and she says, "We have other. The war with Avrandar has been happening and will continue to happen with House Freth. Right now, we do have more pressing concerns." And she looks at Zeron, and Zeron nods. Just in kind of like a scent, not in like a knowing way, but just like a command me, my lady kind of way, right? And Erlal looks at him and says, "My daughter Dirzana has been captured by House Avrandar." And Zeron puts his hand to his chest, and just bows to her and says, "As you will, my lady." And then she turns to kind of regard you guys.
I think we can help, but we're gonna need a little bit of time to rest up a bit before we go.
She kind of like, she smiles and she says, I am sure that everyone, myself included, could use some time to rest. Dirzana is... Let me be clear, I love my daughter, and I want her returned safely. But she is a warrior, and we are at war. She knows fully that her life is on the line with every action that she takes.
Mm-hmm.
If she perishes, I will be in anguish. But no more in anguish than, and I have to take a moment because I think this is impactful, so I'm gonna actually look, and I'm gonna say, no more than the loss of Vorlia, no more than the loss of Istafane, no more than the loss of Thirles. We all have something to lose here. And you see a tear rolls down her cheek as she names her dead children. She shrugs and she says, "I will use my magic as best I can to guide us. How much time do you need?" Depending on your answer, there are varying degrees with which we can approach this situation. Zeron is, and she gestures over, Zeron is very capable of infiltrating House Avrandar and informing us or discovering the location of Dirzana if magic should fail to specify things for us. And you see Zeron kind of like looks at all of you, smiles, waves his hand over his face, and his face changes into a completely different drow. Right?
I don't know. We can probably be back in like 3 days or so, but it's probably
Unless-
longer than that.
Well, let's time
Do
out
we
on that.
need
Like,
3 days?
well, also,
Yeah, you say
I
3
don't
days, and
think the
Erlal
plan
does
is-
kind of wince, right?
Like,
Right, well,
we don't
the thing
necessarily
is-
need to do all of our topside stuff right now. We could do this and then do that.
That's true.
Because this is just expected to be an in and out mission, right?
That is absolutely.
Like, we're not. This isn't going to be the protracted war kicking off. This is going to be in out.
Unless the information that we gather says otherwise, this is expected to just be a find the target location, surgically strike, and remove.
Yeah.
If that's the case, getting word to the Legion is the only thing that and us getting back up to full strength.
It will take some time for them to mobilize.
Well, yeah, but we don't need them for this. So, like,
no, just warning them that there is a threat.
Like a day.
Yeah, Erlal looks at you all and she says, as far as war goes, as far as a battle with House Avrindar goes, with the scale of our forces and our allied forces, that could be days or weeks away. We have been at war with House Avrindar for months, for the better part of a year. A few more days or week or 2 or 3 does not. She holds up a hand and she says, there will be those that die before the end of this war, whether the end of it is tomorrow, or whether the end of it is 2 weeks from now, or whether the end of it is 2 months from now. We would all rather it sooner than later, but we have the time we need for that. We might not have the time we need for my daughter. And I will not risk the lives of my people for my daughter. She knows what she got herself into. Zaran is a different matter entirely. This is what he does. You all are, if you so choose, a different matter entirely, because if I am to understand correctly, this is kind of what you do as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Make
Oh,
trouble.
like somebody like
Smiles.
I don't know. We need like a day, right?
Unless you have,
I'm good with a long rest. Will get me good.
if you have a way to contact the Legion, so that we can
Send
get
to
word to them, then all we would need is a.
I don't know, man. Everything about Azrock has led me to believe we should probably go ourselves.
She nods and she says, if you wish me to inform the Legion, I can do so. If it is that pressing of an issue for you, I can communicate with them easily enough with your guidance. We can do that, and I would assume that before all is said and done, you will also have the chance to go and meet with them to verify things and validate the mobilization of their forces.
I was going to say,
it
we can just have...
It could be both, if you so choose.
That's what I was going to say. We can have Erlal here send a message to at least get them aware, right?
That's the thing. Give them word that things are happening. Then we can focus on getting the daughter taken care of. Then, as planning is happening, we can go and say, hey, yes, that was us. This is what's happening. We need support, so on and so forth.
Worst case, he's like, oh, that's someone trying to get into my mind, so he's on alert anyway.
That's...
all valid.
I don't want her going into Azrock's mind. I think that's a bad idea. One of the other commanders, sure.
If there's someone else that you would wish me to contact, I can do so, again, with your guidance.
I mean, probably Lurkana. Just like message Lurkana and be like, hey, what's up? It's your boy.
I'm a spokesman of your boy.
Perhaps this.
On behalf of your boy.
Perhaps you could all rest. We can provide chambers for you here, easily enough, where you will be safe and solitary, for your own privacy. And while that is happening, you can ascertain exactly what communication you would prefer to have happen. And that will allow you both the time to formulate a plan and to recuperate from your journey and this engagement.
Okay.
She looks at Zeron and she says, Do you have any guidance to provide? You are the most experienced in the infiltration of House Avrindar and the Temple of Obsidia. And Zerad kind of nods and he says, well, walking in the front door is going to be suicide, so that's probably very out of the question. Which means the back entry is the only way we're going to find an actual egress. The only ways that I'm aware of accomplishing that are coming down from the 9th floor or the gate that goes into the Temple of Obsidia. But if we take that gate, then we will be in the Misshapen One's territory. And I don't relish the idea of encountering him prior to trying a lightning strike into House Avrindar territory.
And also, they have a lot of traps on that gate. Speaking from experience.
Wait, is he not talking about the 1 to 6?
No, he's not talking about the 1 to 6.
No, he's talking about the one we used.
No, you're talking about.
Oh, he's talking a different one.
He's talking about a different gate. Yeah. So he
say
clarifies.
That regardless, assuming.
Yeah, he clarifies there is a gate. There is a gate from this level of the dungeon onto the 10th floor. And House Freth knows about this gate. Oh. This is a known quantity to them. But unfortunately, the gate lets out into the Temple of Obsidia, which is Mural the Misshapen's territory.
Yeah, isn't that the one you got muted, Ezra?
What did you say?
No. This is a different gate from the one that's coming from Slither Swamp.
Yeah, that one lets out into Avrindar territory.
We don't even know exactly where that one put us.
You saw
us into the chamber.
Ezra saw a throne. Ezra saw a throne when his mislead went through that gate.
That was the throne room of the Obsidia.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Erla, I think because there's some obvious confusion here. Erla will look at Zeron, kind of like to validate what she says. So she's looking at him while she says this, and she says, "To my understanding, the 10th floor of Undermountain is comprised of 2 main areas. The first being, well, really the entirety of the location is the complex of the Temple of Obsidia. But the northern half is the territory of Mural the Misshapen, and the southern half is the territory of House Avrindar. The gate that we are aware of is to the south of us, within the maze, within the Zazana's territory. And this is the first time you guys have heard that term, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it leads into Mural's territory, which sounds dangerous. And she looks directly at Ashes and she says, no offense, but taking a path like that sounds as if it would be one most prized by stealth. And I'm not sure. Perhaps you can be differently equipped in order to augment those capabilities. But right now, I don't think a stealth mission is suited to your capabilities.
He doesn't like to take that breastplate off. He has a sentimental...
She says, sentimental, right. I can understand why he doesn't want to take that breastplate off. Like she looks like she knows the protective power of that armament, right? Mm-hmm. This is an incredibly knowledgeable, very old woman.
That's a gilf right there, boys.
That's probably
I mean, actually, technically.
I think there's a couple more G's in there.
That's a
No.
G guild.
The you got to keep in mind, right? Like drow technically don't really reach adulthood until they're like 80, right? So like she might have some really old kids, but those old kids might only be barely adults by the scale of an elf, you know?
Still a gilf.
Still a gilf. Yeah. Still a gilf. Anyways, she looks over at Zoran and she says, "Do you have suggestions on a better passage?" He looks over at Ezrah. I think Ezrah had been the one who said something about traps. And he mistakes your statement because he doesn't know about traps on the gate into the throne room. He says, "Do you mean the portals, the false walls? Because I can help guide you through those."
No, I was referring to there was a gate on 8th that went right into the throne room.
Oh.
But so I sent an illusion through there and triggered all those traps before she saw me. And
yeah.
Errolal,
Zoran, and Driven all give you this kind of like blink, 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 blink kind of like look, and then Driven shrugs and says, "Good thing you sent an illusion."
Amen.
Yeah.
Good thing we've killed 2 of our house captains too, I guess.
Fair enough. All right. Errolal looks at Zoran and says, "Are you?" She turns and looks back at all of you. She says, "How familiar are you with the 10th floor? Do you know your way around well enough?"
No.
No, not really.
We barely touched the surface before
Yeah, no.
we had to extricate ourselves.
But you have been there before.
We were there for a matter of minutes
You have
before we had to take a portal.
another portal? You
There's a portal from 10th to 6th, which is one of our sanctuaries.
So if you head back to where you are from, you could take that portal back to where you came.
The 10th, yes.
The 10th.
Yeah, technically.
Zoran, she looks at Zoran and she says, "Are you aware of this portal?" He kind of shrugs and he says, "About where is it?" And he kind of like looks at each of you.
I explained the location from the stairs leading up to 9th.
He kind of shrugs and he says, "I'm not 100%, but I think it's to the west of the Three Sisters, which you should absolutely avoid, by the way."
Means nothing to us.
Yeah, probably keep it that way. Ghosts, banshees, really. Long dead, hateful creatures will need to be dealt with eventually, but that is a problem for a different time, and as long as we can not include them in problems, that's probably for the better. That is, and he's talking to Errolal. He's talking to you guys and Errolal as he's kind of explaining. He says, technically that is still in the Misshapen One's territory, but it's the outskirts, the periphery, not the heart of the temple. If you can guide me there, and he's looking at you all now, if you can guide me there, I can guide you to the outskirts of Avrandar's territory. He looks at Errolal. Will you be able to confirm or try to confirm things with divination by the time they're done resting? And she nods, right? As if she feels confident that she will be able to try to confirm things. Says, well, if Dirzana is held near the arms, near the main entry into the temple complex, short of open battle, I don't know how we get there. Honestly, it will probably just be better for me to try to solo it on my own. Stealth in, take the face of one of the guards and try to do a jailbreak, but my lady, you know it's likely that Dirzana or I fall in that instance. And Erelal kind of nods her head, right? Arachnophane too being a concern, and he looks across at Vicdara, and Vicdara nods as well, right? But if Dirzana is held on the eastern or the northern side of Avrandar's territory, then that is potentially an option for us to make a strike. We've seen what our fellows can do here today, short of them going up against, I don't know, well, additional house captains or Lonwelv's hunters or perhaps Karethic Orza, then, I mean, I feel confident in their capabilities of launching a strike along with my own to free Dirzana. Now, if any of those individuals are perhaps involved, that lessens our chances of success.
Now, taking the portals poses its own risk.
Zoran kind of nods, right? That is true. The portals have, on the occasion, affected my ability to interact with the shadow as I normally do. So that is potentially a wrench thrown into our plans. And Erelal nods and she says, I can protect you somewhat when leaving this place.
Sure, but if the plan is for us to leave this place and then use another portal, that still poses
But
concern.
I cannot do anything on the latter half of that.
Exactly. Now, if we can get word to... again, the conversation comes, if we can get word to the Legion and rest here, then we can operate from here on foot without the risk of portals if there isn't a good portal to take.
Erelal looks at you and she says, operating from here on foot seems unlikely. You would have to go through an entire other level, the Warrens, which are not safe. They are a battlefield, not only of our people in House Avrandar, but of the Nahashtu and of Mapemi, the Ruined Serpents, the various troll clans that live there. It's hell, honestly.
I need a list of all those names.
It is a double-edged sword. And that would just, crossing through that land would merely take you to the front doorstep of Obsidia, which is probably the most well-guarded portion of House Avrandar. I think that's what Zoran means when he says a frontal assault would be suicidal.
No, the front's down. Interesting.
So that means we
No,
take a risk
so the front is up.
from...
You guys are on floor 12, right? The front is in the south, right? If that helps.
I mean, it's pointed towards 11, not towards 10, or not towards 9.
Yes, the front of the Temple of Obsidia is pointed towards 11, not towards 9. Yes, absolutely. So the way you guys came down from 9 is technically the back entrance into the Temple of Obsidia.
Oh, so we're trying to peg the house, is what I'm hearing? Okay.
Absolutely. And that is 100% correct.
So there's a risk of taking...
There are always risks,
Yeah.
but yes,
yeah,
I understand
but
what you're saying.
taking the portal is it comes with its own weight.
Yes.
The shadow under the mountain is not something to be trifled with.
Here we go trifling again.
We have
Indeed.
had various members harmed or afflicted by its presence, yes. We try to avoid the utilization of the gates whenever possible. But at the very least, I can guide my people in their utilization somewhat. it also just makes things complicated that the only gates that we're aware of here are within the Zezana's territory.
I mean, assuming this partnership goes well, we can share more knowledge on and access, if so desired.
He nods. Well, I'm sure we would be amenable to that.
I think at this point, we want to make sure we get word to the Legion. We need to rest up. Put a trip down to the Skulltaker stronghold and pegging House Avrandar to save your daughter seems like a reasonable course.
Zoran looks at all of you and he says, do you feel like the route you're going, do you feel like you need my guidance to get to House Avrandar's territory?
If you don't know where the portal is and can give us appropriate direction, then yes.
He thinks about it and he says, he looks at Erelal and he just has uncertainty on his face, right? Like he's not trying to like hide anything or mince words. He looks unsure, and Erelal shrugs and he says, I think it best, lady, that you work your magics and we plan from there. So perhaps we all rest, or at least allow our allies to rest. And then upon their recuperation, we can reconvene with a plan then. If I, at that point, need to go ahead and try to scout and identify things, then I can. If not, then and he looks at all of you and he says, we can travel together and I can provide my guidance on that trip. And Erelal nods and she says, that all seems well. Driven, do you mind? And Driven is like already like drinking from a Zirkwood like varnished cup, and he like, what? Oh, room. Gotcha. Are we done here? And he kind of like looks around at each of you to see if there's anything else remaining that you want to like ask, or if you're ready to be escorted to a chamber.
I think we're good.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, where are we? And she like looks at him in this kind of concept of like, are you really gonna ask this question? And he kind of like shrugs and says, well, I guess we can put them in fine. Come this way. I won't be gone long. He walks towards the door and opens it. And walks out into the hallway.
Follow.
Yep. You all step out into the hallway with him. Almu Masi, I got you. So you don't clip Zach.
I saw him jiggling back there,
Right.
having trouble.
And Driven walks out into the hallway into this kind of like more open space, and then he gestures to the south and he goes, "Here, noble guests and allies, you can stay in my study." And he gestures down
Ooh.
into the chamber, and he looks really like annoyed. But he like
Ezra's
walks.
not getting any rest, is what I hear.
He walks in and allows each of you to kind of like follow him, right? And as you all are kind of like filtering, you see there are these long black capes with silver web-like embroidery and silver spider or silver scarab clasps hanging from the ceiling, kind of like draped around. You see there's an ornate Zirkwood lectern bear in the middle of the chamber. At the foot of the lectern sits an adamantine chest with scarab-shaped handles. It's a study. It's Ezra. It's a wizard's study, right? Like you've been in and around these for years now. It's the study of a mage who has things the way that he likes. There's no bed in here. There's not really even any amenities. There is a chamber pot over in the corner, right? But he kind of like just looks at you all and he's like, "It's not much, but apparently my dear sister thinks it's the best we really have to offer right now. So please make yourselves at home. I'll have some bedding brought at the very least so you can make yourselves more comfortable. Good show."
Is there anything we cannot touch?
He just kind of like shrugs and he says, I would prefer you touch nothing, but in the sense of practicality, nothing in here is valuable. Everything of value I keep on my person or in places others cannot reach.
Sure. I just want to make sure we don't trigger any of your safeguards.
Oh, no. By all means,
we have some curious individuals in this group. So,
you are perfectly safe. There is nothing hidden, or by all means, search as much as you want, but you will not find anything, and you will not trigger any arcane wards or anything like that. We'll have food sent to you. Any particular predilections or issues?
If at some point Rilna could pop by, that would be appreciated.
Sure. I'll send her a message to see if she is available.
No urgency.
No vegetarians or lactose intolerance or anything like that?
No.
Very well. All right. I'm eager to see how this all works out. I'll see you in a little bit. And he leaves and he closes the door behind him.
All right, goodbye.
All right, cross the room.
Yeah, by all means, what do you guys want to do at this point? It's
No.
you are for the first time in a little while, you are left alone and completely to your own devices.
I would begin ritually casting detect magic.
By all means. 10 minutes later, you detect magic, and most of the things in this chamber are magical. The chamber pot is magically self-cleaning. The capes, the kind of draperies hanging from the ceiling, are fire resistant, and they are sound dampening. Right? They have like little magically enhanced silence fields upon them, right? To keep loud booms from echoing throughout the Shadow Watch. Say what?
I could just drape one of those around my armor.
Yeah, by all means. Walk around with a basically sound curtain on you and see how much that helps.
Yeah.
And then the lectern is the only thing. The lectern is also magical, but it doesn't have like an actual enchantment. It's just one of resilience, right? So it keeps the thing from decaying, from going to shit, basically. It's just
so nothing
reinforced.
that strikes me as he was being not necessarily malicious or negligent, but
nope.
Okay. That is the entire thing I was looking for.
Yep.
Just as a double check.
Sounds good.
I assume there is a bookshelf.
Yeah, there are a couple of other accoutrements throughout this room. There's a bookshelf. There's there's two little end tables. There's a little writing desk over in the corner, right? So you guys can utilize those as you see fit. But there's nothing really on the writing decks. There is a inkwell that replenishes its ink. But it is not magical ink, right? It can't be used to scribe scrolls or anything like that. It's just regular ink. It just auto-replenishes. So it's just a basic enchantment, that type of scenario. Otis Babodering, anything that you guys want to do or discuss with one another, or is it just you get some bedding delivered, some food delivered, and then you rest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do that.
I mean,
yeah.
I would be looking at the books to see if there's anything worth parsing through.
Go ahead and roll me an investigation check.
Do my glasses count?
In this particular case, I don't think so. Because you can read all of the titles, sure. Right? Like the glasses aren't gonna...
I'm gonna pop a Sork point and reroll. Okay. And I'm gonna roll the same goddamn thing.
I mean, it's not an especially robust bookshelf, but there's some interesting titles here. Most of the titles here are magical tomes that talk about the practice and the teaching and learning of magic, right, in its various forms. There's not a lot here that I think would be outside of the norm of what you have seen in the Font of Knowledge or within Dwemercore, right? Mm-hmm. Probably the only thing that is more specific is a small collection of tomes that are more specifically discussing drow culture and drow history and things like that. Still things that you probably could find in the Font of Knowledge and in Dwemercore, just not things that you perhaps have actively sought out in the past at those locations, right? So nothing that just stands out to you as like, oh, this is a rare tome, or oh, this is a tome of Golomancy or some shit like that, right? Sure. It's all important, interesting reads, and probably something that you could just like while away the time with, but nothing that I think is going to just teach Ezrah a new trick. Yeah?
Or something that's out of base that needs to be looked
Absolutely.
at. Yep. Cool.
Okay. So if no one has any other like intentions or plans or anything like that, I think what happens is a little while later, some drow come by and they have bedding for you, right? Like they have some pillows and some basically like bed rolls and things like that you can use to make yourselves a little more comfortable in the sleeping scenario. And they ask if you need anything and are more than willing to like acquire you items for your comfort if you so choose. And otherwise, aside from that, you are delivered food later on, which is actually a relatively interestingly robust spread. There's a fair amount of cheeses in here. There's a fair amount of mushrooms of various like fungi in here. There's these little stews and what appears to be kind of like a steak, like an actual straight up steak.
All right.
With various wines and waters and milk, actually. Again, strangely enough, seems to be like straight up milk.
Where are they getting milk down here?
They got underground cows.
That's for the cat.
Do you ask?
Sure. Where y'all getting milk down here?
It's we have a herd of Roth. And I think everyone here, maybe Matashtai wouldn't be familiar, right? But I think everyone else would be relatively familiar. Roth are just basically like Underdark cattle, right? They're cows that live in caves in the Underdark.
They're not the same, Jay.
Jay over here. But like this individual like just details this yeah, there's a herd of Roth. Actually, I mean, they're technically not ours, but it's a weird scenario. Their keepers, they live here with us, and we,
there's an alliance.
We facilitate their needs, and in return, the goblins give us cheese and milk and the occasional carcass.
Goblins, you say?
Yes, they were technically here before we were. Just a small troop of them. They tend the Roth. They have apparently to their tales. They've been here for years.
Cool.
Damn. Indigenous people, you say?
This individual nods. Indeed. Is there anything else you might need?
Oh, no, I think we're good. Thank you very much. This is very generous.
Appreciate your assistance and information.
Absolutely. This drow leaves. And about probably an hour later or so, there's a knock at the door.
Enter.
Door opens and you see in her military garb, feathered saber at her side, cape flung over one shoulder, pixie haircut. You see Rilna Freth standing in the doorway.
Yes, that's me, Rilna.
And she looks and she says, I was informed you asked for me.
We did?
Yes. Perhaps you could show me around the perimeter.
She gives you this kind of eyes and she says, might I ask your intention?
A moment of conversation and just getting a better idea of what we're dealing with.
I can provide you a private location for your moment of conversation. But though my sister seems to trust you all implicitly, I'm not sure that I convey her trust. As the captain of the Spider Watch Guard, I am perhaps less interested in escorting an unknown quantity around the perimeter of our establishment.
Do you wish to have guards? I'm just looking for a one-on-one conversation.
Oh, the one-on-one conversation I'm perfectly fine with. That does not concern me. You having... And she kind of like eyes you, right? Like she says it in this way of like maybe she's guessing, but she says like, you having perfect knowledge of the going-ons and defenses of the place I am in charge of defending, I am perhaps less interested in.
That is fair. As you're well aware, my capabilities are depleted.
As I'm well aware, your capabilities are quite formidable, and while they may be depleted at this moment, they might not be depleted in the future. I would rather we have time to confirm you all to be the true and staunch allies that we are led to believe prior to you having full knowledge and a filled tank.
That is respectable. And
she's not stiff or anything like that, but she's looking at all of you like, I don't fucking trust you sons of bitches.
Sure.
You know? Like, she is being a little catty about it, but the door is shut, right?
I wish to have conversation. If you are more comfortable in a enclosed location, that is perfectly amenable.
I'm perfectly comfortable right here. If you would rather have a one-on-one conversation, we can do that as well. I have my own chambers. It's entirely up to you. And she takes a moment to kind of like cover her ass, and she says, look, in the future, I'm sure if you prove yourself further, I will be more than willing to escort you around the perimeter of Spiderwatch Keep and show you the ins and outs of our defenses. But for now, I've known you for less than 24 hours. And while you have bonded with my siblings over battle, and she kind of like rolls her eyes at that, right? Very obviously just rolls her eyes in an exaggerated manner to clearly convey how she feels about this process, right? She's like, anyone can just walk in here and fight a good fight, and apparently then they're gonna be good allies, right? She's like, I look forward to being proven wrong. What would you like to discuss, or would you like to go a place where we are private?
I would prefer private audience, but if that is something you are not comfortable with, that is...
She's perfectly fine talking to you alone. If that is the case, she'll escort you out of the chamber, right? And she'll take you down the hallway, out of the front of Spiderwatch Keep. And then you're back out in the open, and you're in this massive, again, cavern that the Spiderwatch Keep is in. You exit out from in between the mandibles of the massive scarab, and she walks. She's not like sprinting, but she walks with purpose across the southern courtyard. Reaches a doorway. Again, holds up this scarab piece to the door. The door opens and she walks inside, and you see in here is this kind of combination storehouse and private chambers, right? So within you see there's a couple of different furnishings. There's several of these slender glass-fronted cabinets made of like a black wood or fungus, right? Inlaid with silver and tracery across the various bits and bobs of it, right? There's a spider silk hammock on the western wall, and there's a padlock chest near it, embossed with little tiny scarabs. And then there's a little simple blackwood desk sitting over it. And then on the eastern side, kind of like where you've positioned yourself, there's just stacks and stacks of boxes and crates, right? Like this is one part Rilna's chambers, which are almost Spartan in their simplicity.
Hell yeah.
And then like the other part just full of shit, right? Like, and
badass motherfucker.
You can tell from just like a glance that this isn't like these are like supplies. This is like food and weaponry and all this other stuff that she's just using half of her room as like a storehouse for for House Freth, right? And this whatever you take away from that, right? This woman appears to be very much a no nonsense, for her family, for her people style person, with these just very rare flourishes of gotta break the mold, gotta have some sort of spontaneity, gotta have some sort of like little rebellion of, oh, I am the perfect disciplined warrior captain, but let me have this kind of like flourishy cape, right? Not practical, but I want it because fuck you, right?
That's Spartan.
So, anyways, and she comes in, asks you to close the door behind you, and you're now in a private scenario with Rilna Freth. And she just kind of like leans against the desk, and gestures and says, "All right, you wanted a private conversation, you have it."
Banishment.
I do not have that spell.
Look, opportunity. We'll roll initiative right the fuck here. Let's go.
As you are well aware, in this situation, you have the advantage.
I have the advantage, or my house has the advantage? What are we talking about here?
In this moment, I am spent. I have used the majority of my abilities, and you, by all accounts, that I am
glad to
aware.
know that you are spent, because my brother's description of your capabilities concerns me.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
Oh yeah.
You should be.
I just want to vocalize that I am in your hands at the moment.
I understand. You're trying to convey that you are not a threat to me and that I could be a threat to you. I don't know that I believe you in that moment. I still believe that you
Well, that's fair.
absolutely have tricks up your sleeves if it came to it. But I will acquiesce to the concept of, are you in top form? Sure, you are not.
I do not mean to be an imposition or a threat. Everything I have learned about your house has been in opposition to what I have come to understand of your people.
She chuckles immediately and she says,
Mhm.
Yeah, you're not the first to say that. You can thank my
I'm
sister
impressed.
for that.
I'm impressed. Balrin has been a reasonable individual. Your niece has been a light. We
Roll
have
me-
had...
Roll me an insight as you're saying this.
13.
Continue.
My experience with House Avrindar, our experience, me and my group, has been nothing but pain and irritation, we will say.
I understand that.
You remind me of my sister. Protective. Maybe, I don't mean to be impulsive, but maybe to a fault.
She kind of grimaces a little bit, but she doesn't argue.
We intend to get your niece back, with the intent on hopefully dealing a eventual mortal blow to House Avrindar. We have our own grievances against that house. Obviously, that's the bigger picture. Your niece is the top priority. Your sister is very much of the same mind. Once we get a couple of things sorted, we're fully in on saving her. As her aunt, I know how kids can be. Is there anything we need to know going into this? Any insight you have into her or her situation that can be of benefit to get her out of there?
Absolutely. If you get your hands on my stupid niece, keep your hands on my stupid niece, and do not give her an opportunity to martyr herself, because she will.
That's good
If
information.
you can envision a stupid situation in which my stupid niece could somehow stupidly envision the idea of, oh, I could throw myself on this stupid spear or sword or whatever and somehow affect some sort of I saved a quarter of this person's pinky. She will. So don't give her that opportunity. If you get your hands on her, preferably handcuff her and drag her kicking and screaming away from whatever conflict she has gotten herself into.
I appreciate your love for your family.
She kind of like narrows her eyes at you like she's not pleased with Ezra's specific nature and line of questioning, but she does love her family, so she's not going to not take the opportunity to appraise someone of what she does believe to be a glaring weakness.
Knowing this is who she is will help us. We will do everything we can to bring her back.
She nods and she looks at you and she says, "That's fair. Knowing a little bit about people prior to experiencing them in their moments can be very important. Very important. The only reason you and your... I shouldn't say that. That's not the only reason. But one of the main reasons that you and your allies ever even got the opportunity to enter this place because of those that came before you. You should thank your hairy friend. Are we done here?
Are there any questions you have for me?
None that I would trust your answers on yet. But I'll take a rain check.
I appreciate your time, and I'm happy to cash that check when you are ready to cash it.
She looks at you. She just kind of like... Roll an insight check, actually.
I'm so great at the...
You're pretty
We
solid.
discussing
Plus
earlier
4
the
is pretty
idea
okay.
of inventing like banking and checking.
Yeah, he said it, so I just rolled with it.
Look, yeah, I mean, this is a woman that is intentionally hard to read. She is a commander. She is a captain. She puts on a brave face. And it's not just a face. She is, in fact, a stalwart, brave, courageous individual who also deeply loves her family and serves her family and her people as diligently as she can. And she wants to trust you. She does. But everything that she has experienced in her life tells her that it is impractical to trust a group of powerful, dangerous individuals who you have known for less than 24 hours.
Yep.
Right? She nods at you. And she walks to the door, opens it, and unless something else happens, she leads you back to your quarters. And if you're just gonna allow that, then I'll just move you back there.
Yep.
So in the meantime,
as she sends me off, I just say, I appreciate the time, and we'll be in touch.
You open the door.
As she leaves, she tells you she responds to you, and she says, "I do wish you the best of luck in this endeavor. Obviously, I hope that you are successful in rescuing my niece."
Thank you.
He leaves. Is there anything that is happening while Ezrah is gone? Ashes, Bones, Matashtai, you guys are left alone for a little while Ezrah is out speaking with Real Nefreth.
Honestly, just like leaning against the wall, taking a nap.
I want to get Mossy to stand on my toes so I can just do some sit-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Mossy's fine with that as long as there's nothing else that like Bones is wanting Mossy to do. Mossy's fine being like basically a piece of furniture that you put your toes under so that you have leverage.
Yeah, that's all I need.
Absolutely. Mossy even does this thing where like Mossy positions his body to where like he's got one foot under on top of both of your feet, and then he has like two claws out, right? And he'll do like you'll come up and you'll boom smack one claw and boom smack the other claw, boom smack one claw, right? So he kind of like gives you that kind of like encouragement, momentum kind of like feeling, right? Bones, anything for you?
No, I haven't been paying attention. Sorry, he pooped in the house and made me mad.
Oh no,
No.
PX, bad boy.
I have the door shut because it's raining, and he keeps coming in with like fucking red paws.
Oh,
The mad pooper.
the joys of pet
Big
ownership.
too, a big poop.
Big poop.
Big poop.
All right. Well, Bones is over in the corner, recuperating. Matashtai is trying to be like, oh god, what the fuck did I just go through?
I'm just trying to take a nap.
I will say, Matashtai, Valena, kind of like reaches out into your mind as this is all happening. She says, "Oh my god, that was an experience."
That was rough. By the way, thanks for the backup on that domination. That was rough.
I mean, I just reacted instinctively. I mean, I don't. Let's be clear. I do not. There is no ownership here or anything like that. But I mean, there's a little like, you're not mine, but you are a very good friend, and I am fully invested, literally inhabiting a corner of your mind. So a little concerned about other entities forcing their way in here. Not
fair,
cool.
Fair.
But jeez, I mean, not even just the fight, but everything that's going on. This is all. I mean, just the last 24 hours have been a lot.
Yeah, it's things definitely feel like they're escalating.
Well, like escaping or assisting, violence and turbulence, escaping from Dwemercore, leaving Dwemercore, fighting that thing, finding the bracers, right? And the feeling of, I don't know about you, but when you put them on, it was just, it felt like everything changed. And then before we had any real time to react, it was through the portal, and then there's that presence and whatever's going on with it, and then fighting with saving the Skull Takers, and then back through the portal after all of that and that prophecy, and then we get here, and I mean, we got attacked by Mistitors, and that is the least exciting or concerning thing that happened. Exactly. That is the least concerning thing that happened today.
That is concerning that's the least concerning. You're right.
Right? And then, I mean, if you take everything else off the plate, I think just meeting Erelol and Driven and that other one, the Shadow guy, those are... We're getting involved in more and more powerful and concerning and extreme things. It on one hand, I am very proud of you. I'm very happy with our friends, with our allies. We've come so far, but I mean, I'm also like, this is a little much sometimes, it feels.
Yeah, I mean, it can get overwhelming. But I think we've been surrounding ourselves with good allies, people we can trust, people that can help us get through it.
Does it slow down?
I think we'll be... No.
I mean, okay.
Full steam ahead.
Let's be honest here, though. Like, yay, we rescued Irzana, we fight Avrandar, we defeat them, we keep going down, we beat Halaster, we defeat the Shadow, you become, like, the full resplendent champion of Boldre, we go home? What happens then?
We destroy the Riodran Empire and liberate
That's
Dar.
an empire! An entire civilization! This is what I'm saying. This is the escalation that I have concerns about. I feel like, isn't this all so much?
Yes. But I can't let it get to me.
Is this our trajectory? I mean, I feel like that was at least somewhat in jest, but I also know you, and I feel like it was not in jest at all.
I feel if we slow down, we'll fall behind. And we can't really afford to fall behind.
Concerned if we don't slow down, we might have a heart attack.
Do we have 2 of those? I don't even remember.
I definitely do not have a beating heart. I'm not sure about you with your weird alien physiology.
It's not alien, you're from the same goddamn planet.
But it's fun to poke fun at you. You definitely seem to be a little miffed about it.
I'm just saying they're the aliens.
They are. They are so weird.
One of them's a damn cat.
I was just gonna say
the other
that.
one turns into a dog, and I'm the weird one.
One is curled up in the corner
300.
right now. The other one is his tail is wagging while he's doing sit-ups.
Other dude
He's
just
excited.
turns into lightning.
I don't. It feels so strange saying that we are the most normal people in this entourage.
That's pretty weird, yeah. Alien bullshit.
Coming
yeah,
from
yeah.
aliens. We're the normal ones.
You feel that kind of like tension release, but there was tension there. There is concern from Valena.
Mhm.
Not that you will fail, right? Not that you and your friends can't surmount the obstacles ahead of you, but more towards the idea of, does this never end? Is this an endless war? Has Valena, this individual who is not a pacifist, but definitely more peaceful, has she attached herself, has she consigned herself with an individual that she trusts and loves, right? But whose path is one inevitably of war for the next very, very long time. You do not feel anything but a strengthening connection with Valena, a strengthening connection as a potential champion of Boldre. But there is concern there. There is concern for Valena that the path to peace is, unfortunately, one of violence. And it will take some doing for her to reconcile that within herself. I think as Ezrah comes back into the chamber, his conversation with Rilna Freth complete, and the party has eaten, taken a little bit of time amongst themselves, and is preparing to actually rest. It is at that moment that I think Ashes finishes his little workout with Mossy.
$4.99.
It's
$500.
It's a little bit like sweaty wet dog in here, right? So not great.
Nasty.
But in your mind, Ashes, you hear a voice.
Uh-oh. Daddy.
And Zalara, she speaks to you and she says, oh, hang on a second. Do you smell that?
Do I smell that?
You sniff for a moment and she says, I'm not talking about you either.
Huh.
Oh, yeah, maybe a little bit.
Roll a perception check with advantage.
Perception. That's performance. Perception.
Ruh-roh, Reggie.
It's not great.
You're tired. You were wounded.
Yeah.
And you've been doing a little bit of a workout. So
I think I almost lost my soul at one point too.
You're a little smelly, right? That almost happened. But I think based off of sheer familiarity, you're like, I don't smell nothing. And then you catch yourself. Because you smell something. Just slightest hint of a stench much like your own.
Stench.
You smell Borden.
Daddy!
And that is where we are going to go ahead and end tonight's session. We'll be back next week, hopefully, with more Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.